Ludus, Vulpes.
Welcome to Ludus Vulpes. My name's Kirsty.
I'm Phil, and we're here with...
Bez
and Chris.
And actually, I don't need to pass you a mic because we've given you a mic. That's just me being like overly sensitive about holding this huge baton in front of us.
It's funny, like when we start doing things, every object in our hands gives us a sense of affordance and requirements.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about games, which are all about the agency.
They are.
Yeah.
So, and we're here to talk about games. So
At the UK Games Expo.
at the UK Games Expo. If that had been 2 days ago, that would have lifted the roof. But
Yes.
on the Sunday of UK Games Expo, the energy's there, but sometimes the voices aren't quite where they want.
I'm conserving it.
So we thought we'd talk about game production and a little bit about what you've brought today as well, and just have the opportunity to like share with the people who watch our channel what your opinion is of self-publishing, because you've done a lot of self-publishing and self-production. And I don't. Well, do you want to start by talking through a couple of games and the creative process behind?
Well, you talked about how I got started, and it was all with In a Bind, which is a game about one finger touching nose, one finger touching ear, two hands touching discard on top of head, and I liked it. Thankfully, enough of my friends backed the Kickstarter. Honestly, like more than half probably of the Kickstarter was people who knew me. The rest of it was almost entirely people who knew me. So it was like 2 steps removed. But then when I actually started going to conventions, people bought it, and that validation is just amazing. To have people laughing and cheering and having fun with something you made. And then my friend Dave Cousins got me in touch with Gigamic, who also said, this is a good game. Can we pay you money in order to make it? Now,
what? Pay you actual cash money?
Well, yes, that does happen. That's how royalties work. So same as the book publishing business, you get a small percentage, you get a bit of an advance, so to say, hey, even if we don't print anything, you will get some cash. And if we print 10,000 copies, you'll get some money. If you print 20,000 copies, you'll get double that amount of money. And they made an offer that, I could have refused it. There was no mafia going on, but I just want to make it clear, there was no threat.
There was no darkened room.
But it was an offer I didn't want to refuse.
Of course.
Now, honestly, this has allowed me to pay rent in recent years, which is amazing. I've supplemented that a bit with development footwork for Alley Cats games, and I made the L deck. I made Kitty Cataclysm. The L deck's the thing I'm proudest of, which I crossed my heart. It will be back with brand new art. But right now it's out of stock. Sad to say.
Well, and actually just walking past. If you've not been to this stuff by Bez stall, walking past here is just always crazy. There's always noise, there's always laughter, and
so much fun.
There's always sales happening as well, which is kind of that's fantastic. So
I think that when people play the games, it's, sorry to say this, it's kind of messed up that in the capitalistic world, our value is so intertwined with the money that we receive. But there's no denying that when someone says, oh, that's a great game, I really had fun with it, you feel good. But then when someone's like, you know what, I want to buy all of these games, you feel even better. And it's not just because of, yes, I'll be able to now afford to take everyone out, well, not Chris is going home early tonight, but I can afford to take lots of the team out to restaurants and stay and carry on doing stuff and carry on making games, and I can. To introduce Chris is my graphic designer, and
I am.
Since how long have you been working for me?
About a year and a half.
So it's all, I can't remember what we were even working on at the time.
At the beginning?
Yes.
We started with just Twitter, so you needed somebody to take over that sort of awareness role for everybody who wants to play our games online, and then trying to adapt some of the LDEC games that we do have, and then put them in a virtual format that people would enjoy to play online.
So if people follow Twitter, you can obviously follow me, Stuff by Bez, which is just me talking to people, and I love talking back to people, and hearing what people have to say. Although I have to be honest, all the tweets that I got this weekend, I just retweeted. I didn't add much commentary. I didn't have the energy when I went home. I just wanted to sleep.
I think that's perfectly fair.
But normally I do take the effort. But with the L deck, it's, hey, I will try to work with Chris to do that initial design of how can an actual game, how can like 5 seconds of it be put into like a tweet. So you look at that and you say, what's a word that you could come up with that uses one letter from 4 different cards? So one letter from each of these cards. Can you see something? Manicures. Manicures, because it's got an ES. Or
Green.
green?
Yes.
Green, very nice. That's the shorter word.
Frisk.
Yes.
What?
Frisk.
Frisk.
Frisk, very nice. And if you want to take it up a level, go to 7 cards, which is what we always have.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I would be thinking, destruction, destruction.
Yeah, that works.
So, but it gets really hard, and some people are like, okay, how can I make the shortest word? And there's a whole bunch of these sorts of mini games, and then Chris would help me put them up, and it's all about facilitating fun. That's what I'm all about. But then recently, we got into print on demand, which really changed things for me. I don't know if you've heard about a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises.
I love whimsical
We love
creatures.
this game.
We played it in a games group after the last Expo, I think. I think one of our group picked a copy of it. And I love being loud and noisy and boisterous, so it works for me. Kirsty's there going, you can do better, you can be louder. And it captivates attention, and that's the beauty of it. It just really draws people in. And I remember the rest of our games group watching it, and everyone sort of started to drift over
It's okay.
and wanted to be part of it because we were obviously having, and I feel like sometimes a lost element of games, we're having fun.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not all serious. It's about a group of people getting together, having fun, making memories. It's not about staring at a board with AP and waiting for 20 minutes for your game to come around.
Quite often, I wouldn't have the confidence to make that game if I had to print 1,000 copies of.
Yes.
And the truth is, not to get political, Brexit and COVID have really put a dampener on my ability to print many games.
Yeah.
I used to be able to print in Poland and get it shipped over, but we're no longer, well, now there's extra VAT and duty and problems to be paid on top of all of that.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree.
I'm curious about how you're going to make COVID a political issue. No. But actually, you're right. Brexit has caused all kinds of issues.
Seriously,
and it's hard work.
that increased the shipping cost. So between me doing a Kickstarter for some stickers, where I was selling off existing copies of Kitty Cataclysm, and me shipping it to USA, the shipping went up literally about 3.5 times.
There's no doubt Brexit has made the UK designers and developers made their life a hell of a lot harder. Because getting your games to people who want to play them is now, if you're outside of the UK, is actually quite challenging. Even getting them into the UK is quite a challenge.
Absolutely.
And we've heard that time and again as we've been around the last 3 days.
Yes.
It's not great, but again, that's why print on demand is such a wonderful thing, because this is something I came up in a game jam. Actually, Chris suggested, I think he said the noise of an animal.
Yeah, something along those lines. Just a very basic concept, and you ran with it, of course.
I asked Chris to come up with a whole bunch of ideas, like kind of inspirations for a game jam. And then I picked like, I think 10 of them, and I was like, okay, everyone in this game jam, we need to do at least one of these. Plus there are some basic restrictions. The restrictions were, at the time COVID was going on, it had to be playable online via a Twitch thing. So someone could have custom cards, so like I could have to print out stuff, but it has to be playable on my stream with a camera, not on Tabletopia, not on Tabletop Simulator, but actually just with the pictures of the people.
As close to a physical game as you can get.
Exactly.
Rather than the strange simulation. And,
because video conference ain't games, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think like, we never made the step to like Board Game Arena or Tabletop Simulator because it felt like it was losing too much about what makes games special for us. So I think that being able to do a Twitch stream game where actually you are still socialising with people in a really personal way is like a real advantage.
Yeah, like you get this social thing where you can actually hear the person, you can see their face, and ideally, like, for quite a long time, I was doing streams regularly 3 times a week. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday nights, where a bunch of us would get together in the evenings and play games. Now that's gone down. I have started doing daily streaming, which is now a separate thing. I do that literally every day at 10 a.m.-ish. Yesterday I was a wee bit late, so I was at 10:30, but it was Saturday at UK Games Expo.
I think people will let you off.
But I did still do it today. I bang on 10 o'clock and I did a 10-minute walk around. Thank you. I appreciate that. The point is, I printed 50 copies. I drew these creatures, I'm happy with them. But then Chris put them all together, did the pre-production, chatted to Rob. And then recently, like, I've come up with, hey, people really like that. How about some cute comical creatures? Now, this isn't, honestly, once I've done this was cool, but this is just, it's just new art. Like, don't get me wrong, like, there is still thought that's gone into it. I don't want to undermine myself. Like, the number of mouths, the style of mouth, whether it's a snout, or a fish-type thing, or a beak. Like, some of them have expressions, like maybe they're falling over themselves, or they're a bit angry or whatever.
Clear characteristics.
It inspires some noises, and I think I've been doing more of that, but also what it allows me to do is then say, hey, that game, I was thinking for ages about what would it be like if you had a matching game where you had to avoid matches. So maybe you have to have creatures, and I can't match these two because they both have wings. And I can't match these two because they both have 2 eyes. This has 2 eyes, this has wings. Oh, there we go. This has 1 eye, 2 eyes, 4 arms, 6 wings, fishtail, and 4 legs. Boom, put that on top. And now I can go back to the previous one that I couldn't pick up. And you keep going. The turnip mechanism kind of breaks everything, but you can only grab 5. Anyway, this is a game that I was proud of, but knowing that I could actually print it, that I could print 100 copies and get it out, and if people like it, I'll do a 2nd edition. And that's what I'm moving towards. Like, this thing, people love this. If I can give a very quick explanation, a game about quickly matching words to pictures, but never words to words or pictures to pictures. So these are identical, but you can't match pictures to pictures. So only pictures so far, and let's flip a deck if you want. You can. There's still no matches. Wow. And keep on going. Wow. Oh, star. There's no star. And
Star.
okay, so you take that. And now cat. And I take that. Yellow.
Ah, damn it. Bed. I'll have that.
Blue. You need to slap them both. Red, so you take those, Kirsty. Red.
Oh, damn it. It went.
No.
Mike. Yellow. Cat.
Bed.
Oh, cat. And suddenly there's this big cascade, and now there's no matches again, and then you flip over something.
Splitting,
And so that's how that game kind of works. And this is, again, another slightly weird idea. It's not the most radical thing. I think I might have been up for printing that but it doesn't set the world alight. There's nothing. Look, the truth is, games like this are good fun. People enjoy them, but it's not going to win the Spiel des Jahres. It's not going to make people thinking, wow, I've never seen something like that, like making noises. But, so it all comes down to the marketing. And that's what I was talking to you about earlier, where I see these as almost being extended playtesting and feeding into me potentially selling games like this to a much bigger publisher who has a much bigger budget.
And that idea of now of because actually what these games do is win hearts and minds. Like you see people walk away with huge smiles on their faces. Like when Jacob, one part of our group, bought We Whimsical Creatures, he came over to the store and was like,
actually, a game about whimsical creatures and trying to identify the offspring's noises, you mean?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
To use a full title.
If that's how you want to say it.
That's actually what it's called.
I know it's what it's called. I'm not oppressing the game with its full title here. It can have an abbreviated title. I prefer Phil to Philip, so you know.
I prefer Agol Katsutatasm. That's the acronym. Or the initialization, I should say.
But it is that thing, right? These wins heart and minds. And if publishers see these winning hearts and minds, that's when they're more likely to wander over and pick up and want to do a 1,000 print run and get your games
it
out.
also allows me to be inspired by the people. Like, what would actually work well? Like, this has been good enough that we've sold more than half of what's printed, but there are little ideas that's like, oh, maybe I should have like 3 cards like this just to add something special. Maybe actually the double-sided nature of the cards isn't adding to the game. I thought it would, but I'm not sure it is anymore. And this is a kind of thing that you
can only learn via playtesting.
Yes, and it sounds weird to say, yes, this is playtesting when I am also selling the game, but the truth is, a game is never finished.
No.
The truth is, there's one card in this deck that I don't think should be in this deck any longer, but that took me many years, and it's improved over this. But I do think that the hand on the knee, just because everything else is above the body, it just feels like hand on the knee. In order to make it wheelchair accessible, that's not quite as accessible. Whereas if that wasn't in the deck, it would be fully wheelchair accessible. And again, I don't want anyone to think, oh, Bez makes half-arsed, shoddy games. I don't know if that's too much. Don't think that's too much swearing, but it's about trying things. Like when I was working on a game about We Whimsical Creatures and trying to identify the offspring's noises, someone said, oh, you were randomly selecting how to make creatures. That's a cool idea. Maybe that could be a game. And they'd suggested dice. That would be super expensive, but I came up with 52 unique characteristics. So like a thin, flexible tongue, at least one shoe. I've not done it yet, but I feel like I want to do it. So after this show now, I've said it multiple times. You could have a creature with all of these characteristics together. They never contradict. The other side is complements guidance. So it tells you how to complement. So
I did wonder if the other side might be an image of what's on there and you actually have to assemble the creature once it's created.
It's all about... So this is a game about drawing creatures. Complementing the drawings, then complementing the complements. Because I didn't want to make a drawing game where you're just about who's the best drawer. That's boring. That's already been done, right? But then what if we complement everyone? That's kind of interesting. This is what was going through my head. That's nice. It would feel good, right? But then, how do we have a winner? What if we work out who's the best at complementing? So it's a competitive game about complements. That would be interesting. I don't think that's ever been done before. So, what if, so I drew something with a tiny mouth, bony or skeletal bits, furry legs, and teeny tiny ears. So this is my creature. So, starting with Chris, could you compliment my drawing?
I absolutely love the way that it's got a single eye for no reason, just because. And then I love the furry legs and the fact that it then sort of moves back into like a skeletal bony system for their top half. I really enjoy that, and the huge feet really add like a lot more to it.
Thank you.
I think it's got this happy, smiley vibe to his face, and he's more than willing to reach up and get cans down for elderly people at supermarkets, and that's helped by the wonderful legs that offer a genuine sense of balance when he's like reaching really high. So I think it's a beautiful example of a store assistant.
Yeah,
That's what
you.
all store assistants should be like.
Yeah. So for me, I think the almost like claw-like toes add a whole level of grasp that you just don't even think about to start off with. I mean, he could help other creatures by them climbing up the hairs on his legs. So if they're really small, they can climb up him. If they need a break halfway through, they can sit on the lovely little bony hip bones here. And then, obviously, this little section's like a little ladder for them to climb up and be able to see the beautiful viewpoint from his shoulders. And I just think the all-seeing eye is just, I think
Wow.
it's definitely, it's
So in the real game, everyone would be drawing their own thing,
Yeah.
and then we'd have the grand reveal, so everyone's drawings would be complimented. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry your drawings didn't get complimented right now, although they could be if you played. But at this point, I would decide who gave the best compliment.
Yeah.
And I want to say, obviously, Chris, that was a good compliment. I appreciated your compliments about the happy smile, and then you had a little story about how it helps, and I really enjoyed that. But Kirsty, you talking especially about the little creatures going up the hairs and climbing up here, it just inspired me, and it told a lovely narrative that I would love to see that, and I could just imagine it in my mind, and it made me think of a graffiti that I've actually seen near where we're staying with little creatures on a giant creature, and it makes me want to draw that, and it makes me feel inspired, and so your compliment inspired me. Thank you.
Nice one.
And everyone has a wonderful, positive feeling about it.
Yeah.
I like that.
And so originally it was more competitive. Originally all the artists would just vote on who was the best compliment giver, and that was it. But now it's kind of a tacit competition. So you say who you think the best complimenter was. So they do feel, oh, I was the best at complimenting, but hopefully, I mean, I do genuinely believe it was a great compliment you gave me, Phil. Thank you.
That's much appreciated.
And I think that the thing I realised when I was playing this game is that when you compliment something, you give it value.
Yes.
If I compliment your recording skills, if I compliment your dress sense or your eye makeup, then that gives those things value.
Yeah.
But then no one ever compliments the compliments. But
No,
compliments
that's true.
themselves do actually have value.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, I don't know if we need to share the story on camera, but we got a compliment earlier this weekend, and it was like really heartwarming to speak to somebody who really valued like particularly Kirsty's contribution to like being a female face within board gaming and actually making it feel accessible to other women who might want to get involved in board gaming. And that was it was a really beautiful moment, but it raised the value of what we do. And that's in a way that's scary, but actually it's also, there's a sense of responsibility and pride to what you come out with there.
Absolutely.
And that's what complimenting can do, and it's almost a forgotten art sometimes.
Very much. And nowadays, especially, it's hard to be able to find the words to put in, to compliment somebody or to take a compliment and just say thank you. And that's one of the things that I actually enjoy about the game is that you're encouraged not to deflect a compliment, which is
If you deflect or
something I
reject
do
a
a lot.
compliment, you lose.
Yeah.
We all do. It's like, oh no, no, it's okay. It's like, no, just say thank you and just enjoy it. Feel
Exactly.
you're allowed to feel warm inside sometimes. That's okay.
Sometimes just thank you or thank you very much if you feel like it's appropriate. And I just want to say that the first edition, it had less exciting art on it. It was a bit boring. But then the new edition, Chris worked really hard, so there's all these coloured backgrounds behind the text. So I drew the text, but then Chris puts it in as a typeface, and every single card, not only the creature feature is unique functionally, but the background, which doesn't matter at all. All that matters is the text. They're all unique.
Yeah.
But the
That's lovely.
art can lift the game a little bit as well. Not it doesn't necessarily change the game, but it I don't know. It can make a game feel warmer than just text on a card. What I love about what you do is this idea of like this small production and games that require a sense of imagination and fun.
Yes.
And everyone has a sense of imagination. A lot of people feel like they may have abandoned it when they were 5, but it's in there and you can draw it out. I love that. And that idea that anyone can play these games within 2 minutes of sitting down, and that feels like a design philosophy that you honour when you create a new game.
I am okay with accessibility barriers. I think to some degree all games have to have accessibility barriers because look, there's some barrier in cost.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's, well, even the game of rock, paper, scissors, you have to actually be able to show those things at speed, which not everyone can do.
That's true.
And even this game, you have to be emotionally aware enough in order to be able to find something to complement.
Of course.
Every game asks something of you. All games are about agency, and all games, if they're about agency, even if they're not testing the skill, even if it's fully cooperative, even if it's about performing, that performance, maybe you don't feel imaginative enough. Every game has to be inaccessible in some way.
That's fair.
But I believe that what we don't want are extra inaccessibilities. So going forwards, and I'm willing to say this on camera, is that for my Kickstarters, I'm going to, for everyone in the future, and hopefully publishers that I work with will agree that I've not checked with them, so I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but for my own self-published things, there will be 10 copies that anyone can get for £1. Now this is, if you can pay the normal cost, please pay the normal cost. If you can't afford it, you can get it for £1 delivered within the UK. And if someone says, oh, okay, this is a £10 game, Bez, I would like to pay you £15 so that someone else can get it, then that will help me subsidize an additional, the numbers are not exact, just to make that clear.
No, it's a pay-it-forward concept, though. It's like,
but it's a community copy, and there will be at least 10 of those to start. Because what I realise is that not everyone has that same financial situation. Making my games cheaper for everyone is not the way to make it financially accessible.
No.
The way to do that is to say, my games are set at a price where I'm actually able to, honestly, like we talked about this, I plan to sell some of these to other publishers, and that will be the point where I kind of see this as paying myself. Whereas really, I want these to be at a price point where I'm able to pay Chris to help me 2 days a week, to continue to work for me. I'm able to, that's basically it. And I'm able to cover my printing costs and coming to a convention ideally. That would be really nice if it's basically a zero-sum thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, that might mean that the first edition it's £5, but then second edition it's £7.50, or if you want it in a box it's £9. Which is that still a bargain? Well, I'm not sure, but if that price is too much for you, I will make sure that you can get it. I'm willing to work with schools. I'm willing to work with anyone who's doing social good. Please reach out to me.
Another thing that we were mentioning a few moments, like before we did the interview, was the cost difference for postage for you, because people at home might not actually realise the difference of what's happened since you mentioned with the Kickstarter.
So, just to explain, I mean, of course there has to be a cut-off, but that is sadly a small parcel.
Yeah.
And that is a large letter. This can get through the slot in an envelope where it's meant to go through for the small parcel, but then they say, oh, if it needs extra force, then it doesn't count. But then, what is extra force?
Exactly.
Like, that's a human decision.
Yes.
And it's... Look, my old games, so these ones, obviously, there was never any way that I was able to get that sent to America. But if someone in America wants actually one of my Busy Bargain bags, I'm starting to realise that I can do that just because of the size.
Yeah.
This one, I think I mentioned that, again, my numbers might be marginally off, but it was literally way less than £10. I'm talking like £7.
Yeah.
And then it went up to over £20 to post one of these.
Which is madness.
Yes.
And a shame, actually.
And that was just because there's less travel going on, there's fewer boats, you know, something's happened.
Yeah.
Chinese manufacturer, like shipment ports shut down for a bit of time.
Yeah.
And when the game's £10, that feels like a huge cost to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell a cheap game that's like a no-brainer. Like if you buy it at £15, okay, I feel good about that. If you buy it at £35, it's like, yeah, that's not. I don't know if I would buy. I mean, honestly, the L deck. I honestly think that this is worth the money, but I'm very biased because the L deck has like so many games for it. But Kitty Cataclysm, no, that's not a £35 game.
Yeah. So that's the effect, people. That people are. So if you're not precious about a box, have it in a bag. It's still an amazing. It's still perfectly good game.
And they are biodegradable. They should have like all these little stickers to show.
Yeah.
So, Bez, is there anything else you'd like to say before we conclude today?
Well, I think that games can do a lot. I think that when you play a game, you're doing the thing, and that kind of, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like that changes you typically more than just watching or listening to a thing. I think that when you do something and actively being part of it, you're practicing for life. Sure, there's a magic circle where I will lie to you in a game of where it's all about deceit. Absolutely. But, and hopefully I don't lie to you in real life, but when we practice complimenting in a game, of course that's going to make us better at complimenting people. When we practice maths in a game, of course we're better at doing maths. If we practice empathy in a game, of course we're going to be better at empathy. And if we embody someone else's life situation within a game, I believe that we can have a greater appreciation for that than we would with just a film. I think that we do still have a little way to go before people think that games don't have to always be all about entertainment. I believe that we can seize the power, which I'm working on, hopefully, fingers crossed, 2023. It's all about bigotry, discrimination, and subjugation of power. It's a very adult game.
It'd be interesting to see.
And I believe that, I mean, you've played it. And did it make you feel a wee bit horrible, or?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it encourages you to do what you would perceive as the morally wrong thing to do, because you know you need to, win, I guess, compete against the other person you're playing with.
But then at the same time, everyone's kind of on their own, but then everyone's kind of thinking, well, if we want to rise up against this person who's clearly in power, we need to band together. And it teaches you about fairness and about sometimes, even if you're getting something, that little thing that you're getting might actually not be of any value. And it makes, I hope, look, there's no humans in it. It is all aliens, just to soften the edges. But I hope that it makes some serious statements.
And I think that's where it's one of those steps that I think board gaming has started to move occasionally into. I spent 20 years as a learning and development professional in corporations, and that sounded like that's the kind of game I would have loved to have had hold of when I'm talking to people about diversity, inclusion, because actually. It's really hard to get people to understand the impact an individual can have as well, and actually when you start to feel that impact, suddenly you're like, oh, could that be what I was? Oh yeah, and that kind of dawning realization is a wonderful thing to capture.
Sometimes they call it the fridge moment, that after doing something, then you open the fridge and you go, oh, wait a minute.
So let's just wrap things up. Thank you so much for your time, Bez. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And hopefully you have a great end to your Sunday afternoon.
And
at the Expo.
If people want to get my stuff online, then I will be retooling my shop by the end of the month. That's our task.
Okay, no pressure.
There you go, Chris. That's your next challenge.
I mean, honestly, without Chris helping me like 2 days a week, I would not be able to do the things that I do. So thank you very much.
I'm glad to be able to give you the opportunity to do the things that you do. I love playing these games. I love showing them to people, and I want you to make more. So if I can help, yay.
Okay.
There you go.
That's brilliant.
And thank you all for
Stuff by
watching as well.
Bez.
Stuff by Bez.
Yep. Check it
Head on the
out.
website. It's great.
Yeah.
See you later.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.